Here we go. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining yet again for another one of our fireside chats. As I'm sure we're going to start with Wisconsin because that's the easiest wolf management plan we have to update because there isn't one. We did send out a press release. I know from sources that I was right on my hunch that why we need a new management plan in Wisconsin. We're still working off the 1999 management plan, which is ridiculous, but it is being delayed. It is being delayed intentionally because of the things that are the PREN and CAS and the Natural Resource Board. So actually kind of commend the department for playing a little bit of political hardball, even though it's completely dysfunctional. This shouldn't be happening. So the wolf management plan is just a picture of PREN for Wisconsin. So you're off the board for that. Yeah, I don't know when we'll ever comment on I literally don't know when that's ever going to happen. I know they did do a social survey. I know Judy saw it. I got one. I filled it out. And the last time they did a social survey, it worked in our favor. As a matter of fact, it always works in our favor in every single wolf state that people like the number of wolves we have or more. And you're going to see that in Michigan and Minnesota tonight. And I think they're taking that, even though that's kind of a flawed social survey, my guess is that'll work in our favor to combat the 350 or less crap that came out of Conservation Congress and what they've been fighting for since the beginning of time. But that is my update for you on Wisconsin's wolf management plan. I know we've been kind of preparing for it. And I thought, oh, good. We can look at the adults in Minnesota and see what a normal wolf management, not Michigan, what a normal wolf management plan looks like. So we'll get to Minnesota's. I actually think they did I think Nancy agrees, a pretty robust and thorough job on their wolf management plan. We won't expect that in Wisconsin, but for now, we won't have a wolf management plan. I can tell you that no matter what, still letting people in the room, sorry. No matter what, our lawsuit, although we have moved off of that, our lawsuit, the Judge Frost orders hold, no matter what our lawsuit did, they have to have emergency rules and they have to have an updated wolf management plan in order to have another hunt in Wisconsin. So that's the judge's orders. Those stay indefinitely, from my understanding. So the fact that the agency is delaying getting out a management plan means we're not going to have a hunt here in Wisconsin this year, probably not next year. I mean, yes, they're federally protected, but at least, looking at state policy. And that's my update for Wisconsin. Wisconsin dysfunctional, like always. So, who knows? I think, I will tell you that I think that this election coming up this fall, what other side would Democrat, Republican, I don't care. It is going to be vital that we keep Evers on because this would have come from his direction, delay this plan so that PREN and CAS and the rest of the GOP special interests who hate wolves can't come in and ruin all of the work. And we were on that committee. Sarah and Kevin sat on that committee for us and all the work they did. So I think that this is a good thing. And that's something to think about for this fall is that, if let's say Kleefish gets in there, it's not gonna end well. So maybe the department would still do that, but then the department would be on the direction of a Republican governor and generally Republican governors do not fare well for wolves. So I think that's all the update I have in Wisconsin. Besides, we're going to be at Animal Advocacy Day this Saturday at Madison College here in Madison. Looks like there'll be some cool speakers. I'll be speaking. You are hearing me yak all the time, so I'm not that interesting. But some other speakers at it that Animal Wellness Action is hosting from 10 to 3 again at Madison College. There's free food. That's always a good lure for me, free food. So if you can join us at that. And now I'm just going to turn it on over to Nancy. Nancy lives in Michigan. Nancy's worked on the Wisconsin Wolf Management Plan, the Michigan Wolf Management Plan. There's nothing Nancy hasn't worked on. So she's the person I go to when I'm like, what is this? And my mentor and role model. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I am going to post, we have some guides for you. For example, I'm going to screen share this, but to get to the Michigan plan, they're like, hey, before you comment, you should review this plan. Well, we did it for you. It's 131 pages. You probably don't want to have to review all that. You certainly can. I did. And Minnesota's is very long as well, although they do have a video out on YouTube if you want to watch that before commenting. But we'll start with Michigan because it's more problematic. And Nancy, if you're good, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm good. Yes.
All right.
First off,
screen share that link.
You're going to do it, or you want me to do it?
You can. Yeah, you do it.
Okay. All right. Well, before we do that, first, I want to just say a few things. And I think everybody on this call and every advocate needs to have a round of applause, because one of the things Michigan did was they did a survey, and they surveyed all residents of Michigan. And then also back in January, we also had a supplemental survey that I know went out to everybody, and we did a little talk on that one too. Well, the results are in, and what it shows for Michigan, I'm going to give you some statistics here. Majority do not support killing wolves in the event of wolves killing a pet, a hunting dog, or livestock. I was really surprised at that. I figured there would be some support, at least for killing a pet. If my dog was killed by wolves, personally, I would think it would be my responsibility to make sure my dog is safe. But the majority don't support killing wolves for killing a pet, dog, or livestock. Only 35%, that's really small, support lethal control to address predation on livestock, and even less support lethal control for hunting dogs or pets. Less than half support a wolf hunting season, and that's down from the 2015 survey. Also, 70% of the public strongly or moderately agree that wolves are important to the ecosystem, and 80% agree that wolves have an inherent right to exist. So I'm really, really optimistic with this. 49.9%, just a hair under 50, want an increase in the wolf population, and 24% want fewer wolves. So 50% want more wolves than what we have. And then this was another interesting statistic I found, is that support for compensation for livestock actually declined from 2015. Back in 2015, 58% people said it was acceptable to use tax dollars for compensation. Now it's down to 48.5%. So almost a 10% drop on people who support even compensation for livestock. So I really believe we are winning in this fight. And on the plus side with our plan, the Michigan plan actually is pretty good. The biggest thing that they've done is it was just an update. And I know we're being recorded, but the one thing, the last time I spoke about the Wolf Management Advisory Council, I was very frustrated and felt like I was banging my head against the wall, that no one was listening to advocates. They were just listening and pandering to the hunting community and the trapping community, and basically anybody who wanted to kill wolves. The council came out with, and it was supported by 3 of the 5 members, with 1 member missing. So it was a 3-to-1 vote to have a UP-wide hunting and trapping season. Well, I'm happy to report that the DNR rejected virtually every one of the council's recommendations, including the desire to have a UP-wide hunting season. So they rejected almost all of them. The ones they did accept were kind of watered down a lot, that you don't even recognize that that was a recommendation. So they pretty much just took a thought of the recommendation and then ran with that. The Michigan plan does cite science in just about every strategy, except the wolf hunt. They don't advocate for a wolf hunt, but they don't discount it. And so that's the area, of course, we knew it would be the most contentious section of the plan. So at this point now, I think if I can get this up, we will try to.
Nancy, I'm just going to add on to what you said, and I do want to congratulate everyone. And I think you're right, absolutely, that we're winning. I'm not trying to just float our own boat thing here, but I think this is 2 weeks ago, if you didn't make that fireside chat, we talked about the importance of state litigation when it comes to wildlife. And if you don't think Minnesota and Michigan paid attention to what happened here, of course they did. So I think even that pressure, even though we didn't sue in Michigan or Minnesota, I think the fact that they know we will now puts them on notice a little bit. So I think that, just if you weren't here for the last one, I think that one of the reasons it's so important, and we had our attorney on last time, is to keep on that state pressure like we've been doing. I mean, certainly the feds know we're going to sue over wolf delisting or grizzly bear delisting, but the states we really haven't held accountable. So very good job to Nancy and everyone in Michigan and to Minnesota and here, because we're right. And when it doesn't feel like we're winning, always it feels like we're losing to me most days. I think that these are really good signs. So thanks, Nancy, and I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, and one other point too, we often hear about social carrying capacity, and that was part of the 2015 wolf management plan in Michigan. They totally eliminated that. And that is a good thing, because social carrying capacity is saying, okay, well, I think wolves should be killed because, you know, we don't like them here in the UP or something along that line. Instead, they used language that says public preferences. And so they're referring back to those statistics that I quoted originally about the attitudes. And so the attitudes have greatly improved. I didn't see any one spot where the attitudes have gone down. A couple of them stayed the same or about the same, but all of them improved. Okay, so now I'm
Nancy,
going.
don't you kind of also agreed that I think that we're going to see that in the Wisconsin social survey as well? It was already in our favor, and I think, and this is, I'm not trying to be mean, but as the boomer generation gets older and the Gen Z coming up and millennials are getting older, you know, that is true that if you look at it by age group, certainly people are a lot more tolerant of wildlife when you're a little bit younger. Not saying that, but it just is true. A sociologist, it's true. So I cannot see at any point that actually public attitudes would decrease, frankly, in any of these states, even Idaho. So, okay, I'll shut up now. Sorry.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can see the Michigan Wolf Plan, and we're going to have all these links posted. I have a guide together that has the links on here. The one thing also I learned just this week, that our Natural Resource Commission does not need to approve the plan. So the DNR will only be sharing the plan with them for informational only. So as soon as they get all these comments together, they will just sign off on the issue a final and then sign off on it. There's a couple of things too that if you go through the plan, you're going to notice. They talk about biology and all this typical stuff in a wolf plan. The size of our packs has decreased. We're down to just the average pack size of 3. Another important part is though our territories have increased. And why that's important is normally the science tells us that as the population becomes more saturated, the territories become smaller. But what Michigan DNR has found, that with the GPS collars, they're finding out that these territories are much larger. And where that has a big implication is when they're doing the population surveys. So you have a report of someone someone's seeing a wolf here, but then somebody else is reporting a wolf being seen 20 miles away, it may very well be the same wolf because the territories are so much larger. So that's important to know on that. And the DNR recognized that, which is really good. The whole beginning part of this is just all the basic biology, but there is one part in here also that I think is important because I did get clarification from DNR. They have all the population information, but only up to 2020. DNR did do a population survey in 2022, and that's not part of the plan. And I questioned them on that. And I was told that it will be in the final draft. They just haven't completed all the information on it. So this is the plan, and goes on and on. I just want to find the section here. Oh, here's the chart where it ends at 2020. And you could see Michigan wolves have stayed stable for more than 10 years on the population. So, and then the other part, though, is the part on 6.7. The goals are all the same. They haven't changed the goals. One of my recommendations, though, is on the definition of viable population. They did keep that in here, and they're saying a minimum criteria of 200 wolves doesn't reflect the maximum number of wolves that we can support. However, what happens is the 200 number is often quoted by our Natural Resource Commission, the legislatures, and those as hunting, saying that that is a target, which the plan clearly says it's not. But my recommendation is that we eliminate any reference to that 200 number. If they want to use it as the history, that's fine. But as far as a viable population, we should be looking at many other factors. And I'll go into some of the language that I have for that. It's steeped very much in tribal perspective, and also in the strategies in education. The big problem with Michigan, though, is these concepts have been in the plan since 2008 when I served on the advisory council, but they haven't done a lot of that. And it's because they don't have the funding and they don't have the resources. So that's another one of my recommendations, that we need to be able to know what's going on. And there's some things they can do that are very, very easy to do as far as educating. So look at 6.7 is where they totally took out the social carrying capacity. I'm not going to go through all these sections. It's, like I said, 100 and some odd pages, but many of them are cited references. There is one other point too, where in the references, in the they are very often are quoting, citing Michigan DNR A, B, C, D, and E. Those are operational guides. And what I'm recommending is that those guides be placed on the website. They should be available for the public. They're just referenced in citations, and I've already given those to a couple of people. What they're saying is, wonder what circumstances they can use lethal control, when they could issue permits, what's considered a nuisance animal. A wolf walking across the field is not considered a nuisance animal. And so it goes all the way down from just seeing a wolf in your backyard to a wolf standing his ground and you're staring at you in your front yard or staring at your pet. So they do a progressive steps as to what actions could be taken. So on that, okay, we're going to switch to how to do the comments. And again, we'll give you the link to how to comment. And within the link to comment, they have a link to the plan. And it's a little bit different than the one in January. When January came along, they did, at each question, they gave you a place to put comments. This time it's different. They ask you whether or not you support the goals. And your choices are acceptable, somewhat acceptable, neither acceptable or unacceptable, somewhat unacceptable, and totally unacceptable. So they go through each of the goals that way. And then I'm not going to tell you how to answer that, but on question number 5, it says, is there anything you'd like to see changed in goals 1, 2, 3, or 4? And then, so that's where you could write in what you want, but there is a limit. They have it limited to something like 4,000 characters. It's still a lot that you could put in there, but that's the only place when referring to the goals that you could put here. Then they go into each of the strategies and how you feel about the strategies. And again, it's real simple. They just want to know whether or not you approve these strategies or don't approve the strategies. And then it goes all the way down. And I'm going to go right down to 6.12 because that one there is the most contentious. And it says, what is your acceptance level of strategy 6.2? And that is to develop a socially and biologically responsible management recommendation regarding a public harvest of wolves. So there it is, the elephant in the room. And objective 1 is to develop recommendations on harvest for reducing conflicts. And where that one is almost more dangerous than the one for just recreational purposes is because the average person on the street who hasn't been living and breathing wolves all along, if you ask them, well, if we have to kill wolves because of conflicts, do you support that? Most people will say yes. However, the attitude surveys are now coming through saying, no, that's not really a good idea. So that's the one we have to hit the most. And where we're hitting that the most is the lack of science. Science does not support reducing wolf populations for conflicts. If there is a conflict, we need to address it at the time of the conflict, not 5 months later. And then also developing for recreational, there definitely isn't any support for that, either by public attitude surveys or the science. There just isn't a scientific need to have a wolf hunting and trapping season. So that's, this is just the whole format for the survey. And then they do have a place for you to write in, is there anything you would like to see changed in the previous 12 strategies and objectives? And do you have any additional comments? And then the last question they ask is, how do you identify yourself? I support wolf hunting. I support wolf population control. I support controlling problem wolves only. That's going to be the gotcha in the 12.1. I do not support wolf hunting, and that's the preferred answer. I would need everybody to check that one, and then you click submit and you are done. So a few more minutes and I developed a guide, and your comments are due by August the 4th. And as I explained in the intro, this plan is an update. It incorporates the most scientific data and public attitude survey. The goals and strategies are the same. The plan does not include any operational guidelines. And so some people get really upset with that, saying, well, how do they plan to do that? What do they plan to do? And so that's up to the DNR to decide. And it's up to us to tell them what we think they should do. The one positive about this, or one of the positives about this plan, is it doesn't identify a target population size, nor does it establish an upper limit for the number of wolves in the state. So That's the big thing. We fought for that really, really hard. There were many in the UP who want the wolf population cut in half. And again, they're going, well, you know, Wisconsin has a 350 goal. We'll go with 400, you know. I mean, just absolutely no science based on it. So at any rate, this is my guide, and I gave my suggested answers, but that's up to you to decide. I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference as to what block you answer here. And so some of the comments that I have, one of the goals that I think I think that there should be another goal. I think they should add a fifth goal to address the conflicts that are facing wolves and the challenges that wolves are facing. And DNR is not planning to update this plan for another 10 years. So what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Right now, our world is burning up. And so I think there should be something that addresses mortality, impacts of climate change, natural and human mortality, what's going to happen to travel corridors. So I think even though they have some of this stuff all written in throughout the plan in different sections, I think this is worthy enough to have its own separate goal with its own separate strategies. Regarding the viable population, it should be based on factors such as population size, recruitment, disease, habitat, and threats affecting their existence, and not just some numeric threshold. And where that language comes from, that's the language that is put forth by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's a federal standard too, that's what we need to look at. And so then I also went through all the strategies. And again, the strategies themselves are really, in my opinion, rather good. I think they're acceptable. And so I go all the way down there, and then this is where I added a lot of comments and try to rephrase it so it doesn't look like you're just copying and pasting, but you can use the thought, add your own comments. I said the plan is good. The problem has been the lack of resources, funding to carry out the components of the plan, especially education. If you go onto the DNR website and check out wolves, when you click on wolf biology, it takes you to a different site. It doesn't even take you within the DNR site. It's like one of these national sites about wolves. It doesn't give any data about Michigan. That's totally unacceptable. You know, tells you the height and weight and all that other kind of stuff, but nothing about Michigan. And so I said the website should be updated regularly with predation information, as well as wolf mortality, ways to coexist. And then I also want to see the operational guidelines for addressing the conflicts posted. One of the things that came out in the attitude survey was how deer hunters, because they also did a survey to a subset of people, fur bearers and deer hunters, and the deer hunters came out as being the least receptive to wolves, saying essentially wolves are eating all the deer. And so one of my recommendations is that we do more education with licensed deer hunters, and that could even be done with posting information in the deer hunting guide. It could be done at the hunter education curriculum. We have a fur bearer guide. They could be putting information about wolves in the fur bearer guide. And also they could be given something out when a deer hunter gets a license. If you apply for a license online, why not attach a basic informational sheet that's also printed out? Some of the other things, I think there should be additional research. DNR should be funding research to address the ability of wolves to slow the spread of CWD and other diseases. We have 2 other diseases in Michigan. Neither of them are in the UP. One is bovine tuberculosis that's really decimating certain cattle farms in lower Michigan. And we also have another one called EHD, which is carried by a black fly and a no-see-um type fly. And we have those flies in the UP, but we don't have that disease in the UP. And I personally believe it may be because we have wolves. The other section that I pretty much attack is section 6.10, and that's the one that deals about domestic animals and the impact on domestic animals. And the way it's written is the information in there is correct. It talks about how there's been a little over 300 predations on livestock, over the years, and that represents 10% of the farms. And I said that should be done. Put that in perspective, because we only have one chronic farm. Lethal control was utilized, and the predation still continues because of poor carcass disposal. And the DNR admits that there's no correlation between livestock conflicts and wolf abundance. So that's a section that we need to hit, and that the DNR needs to articulate and just really put everything in perspective. Last year, we only had 4 farms affected by with conflicts, and 3 of those farms had one event. We want to, this is in section 6.10.3, there is a line in there that lethal control could be used if wolves are attacking free-ranging hunting dogs. So that is another thing we have to really try and get out of the plan. DNR posts regularly to their website. Anytime there is a predation, it goes back over 10 years. There's an inherent risk of releasing their dogs. In Michigan, we have an unlimited quantity of allowed bear bait. So you can put out as much bear bait you want. And of course, the wolves are attracted to that, and then the conflicts occur. Still, we don't have the conflicts anywhere near Wisconsin. And then 2 other comments I have on here about the hunting and how it's not supported by science or public attitude surveys. And one other note that's special to Michigan. Michigan held 2 votes back in 2014, and voters overwhelmingly said no to wolf hunting and trapping. And so it's important to note that voters of Michigan have already decided that wolf hunting is not socially responsible or acceptable. And then the last comment that I have for you is about the update for the plan. The plan will not be updated for 10 years. And while I don't want to go through another year like we went through this year, by the time the next plan is updated, I'm going to be 80 years old, and I'm going to be using one of those walkers with the little tennis balls underneath it, or I'll be shaking a cane, telling them in another thing. I don't want to wait 10 years. I think that at least every 2 years, there should be a State of the Wolf report. Minnesota has it in their plan that it will be, they will do an update or a notice, a report, a management report every year. I'm saying in Michigan, it should be at least every 2 years. That can coincide with their population surveys when they do the population survey, and update the state with predation information, mortality, and things that they might not have been able to get done, and the reasons why they couldn't get things done. Sometimes it's just a matter of funding that they can't do it. Well, maybe, if they can't do something because of funding, some of the NGOs could step up and provide them the funding to do something that they need, such as education. That would be one way of getting some stuff done. Wolf Watcher just donated $1,500 to Wildlife Services in Michigan. because we have, again, I don't think Wisconsin has this, we have a non-lethal specialist hired by Wildlife Services to work with farmers implementing non-lethal measures. And Wolf Watcher just donated $1,500 to them to help them buy non-lethal supplies. So with that, Melissa, you want to wait and do all the commercials at one time? Or you want to just do them at each, like now, if somebody has questions?
Oh, I think there were a couple of questions. Let's get to that. Let's get Michigan questions done.
Okay.
Kelly asks, what does recruitment mean in this context? I think it was a little bit back a little bit.
Yeah, recruitment would be, how essentially pup survival. So are they recruiting, how productive of our packs, whether or not those pups are living to be a year old, are they surviving to be able to disperse?
Okay, I think there was a comment from Fran. I think you guys.
Oh yeah, he said survival to reproductive age. Okay, he just
perfect.
Answered me. Good, thanks, Fran.
That is a really weird, that's a weird word to use for recruitment. Yeah, but I did kind of put some things in the chat. You don't, necessarily have to worry about them now. I'd click on them and bookmark them just so you have them for the Michigan plan. It's funny because the Minnesota plan is better. Actually, probably one of the best ones I've seen. So here's the good news: we don't have that much. There's a couple little problems, but all these links will be on our website. So you can always go on there. This chat is being recorded, so we'll put that up. And when Nancy says she'll be 80 with tennis balls, she'll still be hurling at them, telling me to watch my mouth and saying yikes when she reads my responses to biologists like yesterday. So I had a little argument with Adrian White this week. That was kind of the highlight of my week. But I guess does anyone else have questions on the Michigan plan? And I want to thank you, Nancy, because that was awesome.
Good.
Well, go ahead, Fran. I can't see anything. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks.
You don't have to raise your hand. You can just chime in. There's not that many of us.
Cool. I appreciate it. And thanks so much, Nancy, for all that work. I just started trying to go over the plan today and appreciate all the insights and the guidance. I was wondering, so I have a question and a comment. The question is if the survey results that you were sort of
right.
are publicly accessible.
Nope, that was my question too. I tried to get them and they're not available. They are cited as Michigan DNR A, I believe is how they refer to it. And I did say that those should be posted on the website. So nope, they don't have them. But what I did was I went through the entire plan and gleaned out every time they said what the public attitudes were. So yeah, it took me days to go through that because I went through 2008's plan, 2015 plan, and the 2022 plan. And every time they referenced something in an attitude, I dumped it into a Word document and then tried to sort through it. And that was the only way I got the information I did.
That's a whole lot of work. Thanks so much.
It's so much work. It's so much work. You guys have no idea. Thank you, Nancy. All I had to do was just send Nancy a picture of Dr. Pren and say, here's our wolf management plan. So my job was really easy for this one. Okay.
The comment that I had, and to an extent, I'll drop it now because it's relevant to the Minnesota one as well, is that I would say disappointed by the sort of like selective citation that I saw, especially when it comes to the effect of lethal management actions, the effect of reducing tolerance. Even in the Michigan one, there's some studies of effective non-lethals in Michigan that I'm sure some folks know, like the studies on philandry and livestock guarding dogs that were done there by Thomas Gehring, and they don't even cite those. They don't cite neither the Minnesota or Michigan ones. They, I guess, forget to cite all the research from our lab when I worked with Adrian Trevis. And they do cite other research from Wisconsin that challenges that research, but without mentioning Adrian's or mine. And I think, if, that speaks to a very arbitrary, selective citation and consideration of science that needs to be called out, because essentially they're missing there that there's evidence that despite potentially some effectiveness of lethals in as a response to conflicts in the area of implementation, it might actually increase conflict for adjacent farms. That's
right.
not
Right.
Thank you, Fran.
Yep. One other point I was going to make too is Humane Society of the United States did also prepare a guide. And I believe, Melissa, you're going to post that one as well.
Yes, Britt's actually working on it right now. So when you go to that advocacy tools by tomorrow, not only your guide will be there, but Humane Society's guide for both states as well. So it is a lot of work to read through these plans. Even today, God, what is this?
And what I wanted to do is with the Humane Society, I'm not countering any of their stuff. I tried to complement theirs so that you could get language from both. I didn't want to repeat what they put out, but they brought up that very point that Fran is making regarding the citations. They brought out many other points too that you could glean from there too. So between the two guides, you should be able to get some pretty good language for your own comments.
I do want to, I can turn my video on. I'm sorry, guys. I do want to, let you all know that you don't have to write everything verbatim. Yes, it's always helpful to reflect science, but like I've told you guys before, it doesn't matter the reason why you're commenting on the plan or how you feel. If the reason is emotional, that's fine too. These are just guides for you. And honestly, if you can look at the guides and kind of put that into your own words, that's always a good thing. Not my words. Don't use mine because mine are not very nice this week. But into your own words. I'm teasing Nancy because and I'll tell you about it later. But
and speak from the heart. Speak
from the heart. That's right.
So you're getting emotional. Like hunters aren't emotional. Bear hunters don't get emotional.
I had that conversation yesterday that if men had co-opted the emotion anger and made it a non-emotion, then never mind. I'm on my soapbox again this week. But so I'm gonna quickly just move us to the Minnesota plan because that one is easier. It's easier. So really, I'm going to just be overall because you'll have the guides up. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You can see here in the chats, and I can share my screen if you want to. You do need to register at Minnesota. So you have to set up like an account with Minnesota. You don't have to be a Minnesota resident. It takes 2 seconds to do so. I just want to put this back. There is a helpful YouTube video for Minnesota that's only 30 minutes long that now the agency put it out. And there was a couple parts where I was like, but it was helpful. Actually, Nancy was on there, Jill was on there. They cut that part out, but at least their presentation is there. You can watch that. That is also up on our website. But Minnesota's, and I'm just going to go to it here. Oh, maybe I am. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to go to it. Yeah, and I agree with Fran. That's actually one of the talking points I want to talk to you about Minnesota's because Minnesota's is pretty good. Let me see here. Let me see if I can screen share again. Sorry, guys. I had this going. Share my screen. Okay.
Did I stop sharing? Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah. Okay. So you can kind of see here with the wolf plan, who's listening. Dan Stark. But you can kind of go down. This first survey is closed. That's an old one. So you're going to go to the second one where it says take the survey here, but everything is open-ended on this one. So it's not like the Michigan one, like, do you somewhat agree? Do you kind of agree? It's what are your comments about this section? Or what are your comments about that section? And really overall, I think it's a really robust, good plan. Yes, there's some problems, like the fact that they're peer-reviewed science, I think intentionally by certain people, Rolf Peterson, John Vucetich, not just Fran and Adrian's research, are not used, and Meech's 100-year-old research is used, but that's a whole another can of worms. But I think you will see that in the guide. I think one of the important things with Minnesota is that they have their public attitude surveys are available to look at. And that's what I went through today specifically, because I knew that was going to be the major problem with Minnesota's. Okay. And the biggest thing is that they did public attitude surveys. Guess what? Minnesotans want the number of wolves they have or more. Minnesotans don't want wolves hunted or trapped for sport. Minnesotans don't want wolves killed for lethal control. The same as we're seeing in Michigan, the same as Wisconsin. These public attitudes towards predators are improving, which is great news. But they also did a survey, and to me, the way they've presented it to the public is they have weighted this survey to be equal to surveying all the residents of the state, right? So 80% of livestock owners and hunters want a wolf trapping and hunting season, okay? So actually, I think I can show you that they have a, sorry about that, hang on one second. I thought I had it open, apologies. They have that as a, well, that's the full draft. They do have a fact sheet, and the fact sheet makes it seem like this one demographic, which I call, and you guys know this by now since you've been on these calls, their customer base is equally important to the rest of all Minnesotans who don't agree with the vocal minority that don't necessarily like wolves or want to hunt wolves. They have a one sentence blip about, yeah, the tribes are important. So I think for this plan, again, we'll have these sheets up. When I looked at HSUS's, they pretty much said that. The only thing they don't have that I'll be adding to the Minnesota plan is I think they need to have a little bit more robust section on, yeah, we care about the tribes. That's not enough. To me, it's disrespectful. And there's no, in this plan, there's no statement from even one tribe. It's kind of just lumping them all together. And I thought that they could do a better job with that. That being said, those are the bad things, right? So they, livestock owners and hunters don't, they want it, and they're our customer base. They pay the bills. This is true, kind of. Non-consumptive users pay more, but the agencies view them as this is who pays for conservation, right? We've seen this over and over and over again. So I think that's an important part to point out that, like, yes, great, your hunters and your livestock producers want to kill wolves for sport. So what? Most Minnesotans don't. So I think that's an important that they've taken that part of that social survey and weighted like it's as important or it's as many people as in the overall surveys, and it's not. And you can see that it's a very small actual number of people that want that. There's not really that many livestock producers. There's a lot of hunters in Minnesota, but I don't know what to tell you. Hunters, the ethical hunter is slipping away. I don't know what to tell you about that. Certainly we have them. We did our billboard campaign. We know that good hunters care about ecology, but if you're not a hunter, those are my wolves too. Right. So I think, that's something that to point out on the Minnesota plan. Otherwise, I will tell you, this draft plan is not that bad. Right. And I'm shocked to hear that coming out of my mouth, because I thought, oh gosh, here we go. But I can tell you that Minnesota allowed a lot more, I think this little fact sheet's in here, allowed a lot more representation on their panel. Here it is, update fact sheet. I hope I can find it. Darn it. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had it pulled up. So you can see the Minnesota attitudes, okay, towards wolves. Who's on their wolf? They're very transparent, which is a good thing for us, because then we can really get in, like Nancy said, what Appendix A in Michigan? We don't even have access to that documentation, even though it's our government. So Minnesota did present all the information from what I can tell, but their advisory committee was a lot more fair. Not perfect. Their non-lethal implementation and abatement is a lot more robust. I mean, I'm comparing things to Wisconsin, you guys. So it's kind of like you can only go uphill from Wisconsin. I'm sorry, but I really was pleased. And I'm pleased that, I thought Michigan's was going to be very similar to Wisconsin in weighting the farmers and the hunters more than recreational users, but no. So that was good.
One other thing too, I want to just remind everyone too, Minnesota wolves, although Michigan and Wisconsin wolves are classified as endangered, Minnesota's are classified as threatened. So lethal control can still be used in Minnesota to kill wolves if there is a conflict on a farm. So I tried to look up their data. One thing I couldn't find, I can only find data up to 2019, but it looks like about 200 wolves every year are killed in Minnesota because of livestock conflicts. And also less than 2% of the farms in wolf range experience predation. And then I also looked up some mortality. And in Minnesota, just in those 3 wolf hunting seasons, 2012, 13, 14, 923 wolves were killed. So I think that is a little bit of a background there. And yet still within the plan, we have to really hit them hard on the hunting and trapping, because it says that if a hunting and trapping season was to occur, the possible objectives could include for managing livestock conflicts, aiding young ungulate population recovery. You know what they're talking about there? They're talking about moose, right? But mostly moose, because the moose population is on decline because of brain worm and climate change and everything else. Reducing wolf disease outbreaks or providing regulated hunting and trapping opportunities. So that is language that we really have to attack on the science, that there is no science, there's no public support. So yeah, but I just want to remind everybody that in Minnesota that there is already lethal control, which we don't have in Michigan or Wisconsin.
And, you know, that's kind of a state-sanctioned hunt, in my opinion, in some ways.
Right.
I do want to go over just this one last thing, because I just have it in my notes and I don't want to forget it. This is their overview of their 800-page management plan. But you can kind of get some you know, backwards, you know, back story here, and what, you know, what the guy, you know, what it's guidance on how they manage wolves in Minnesota. So all of this is here. Public safety. God, shut up. I'm so trying so hard to be nice today. But I do want to go down here. This is what I was referring to. They even put it in their fact sheet. This is problematic for me. So what do Minnesotans value? You can go through and read all this. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm a sociologist, so I'm going to knock out some of it because I'm like, oh, this is not good. But the key findings, and you can see here, Minnesotans agree maintaining a wolf population in Minnesota is important. Residents on average felt they'd like to see wolf numbers remain the same and for wolves to occupy about the same amount. So, and their numbers have stabilized as well. But they decided to add here, the survey found that 80% or more of livestock producers and deer hunters support establishing a wolf hunting and trapping season. That level of support is considerably higher than the level of support indicated by the general public. At least they said that. But I don't think they need to point, like, to me, and the way that it's presented is like that this is an equal opinion too. And it's not. This is a minority of citizens. So I just wanted to show you that. Here they say wolf experts will weigh in. Fran, you can talk about that. They say this expert group is comprises of the agency. Well, at least they said it, right? So I don't see any outside actual research with that, which can be problematic, but we gotta, I don't know, we can pick our battles. I don't know. And here's the other part that I thought, you know, they needed this. Yeah, the DNR is working with the tribes. Native Americans are, you know, have high regard for spiritual and traditional purposes. They don't need to say that. They need to tell us what is the wolf management plan on reservations. Send us that information. To me, this kind of trivializes Native people and Indigenous people should have a say scientifically, not just dismissive, because they have robust wolf management plans, especially like Leech Lake. They have a robust wolf management plan that was done with science. And I think to kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Someone else can chime in on this, but to me, I felt like, you know, oh, they were just kind of dismissive, like, well, they're just spiritual and traditional. when that's not really true. They're doing really good science and really good wolf conservation. And frankly, in Wisconsin, at least, if the tribes wouldn't have been doing that all along, we wouldn't have the wolf recovery that we do. And I think that's true in Minnesota as well. So that would be one of my comments. I know personally that's what comments I'll be making, but I think that that's important. And tribes should be allowed to speak for themselves. Minnesota DNR doesn't need to tell me what they're doing. Why not include a statement from them? So that's my spiel on that. They are an equal opportunity employer, it looks like. That's good. But you can kind of look over this fact sheet. Again, like Nancy said, we just need to really focus on, that most people don't want hunting and trapping and trophy hunting season of wolves in any of our states. And we got to just keep doing it. Because if we don't, the Hunter Nation crew are not far behind. And they can use some of this information to move their agenda forward. And they shouldn't be. So while I am very pleased with the Minnesota Wolf Plan, I like that it'll be revisited. I like the fact that it's a little more robust. I have to give credit, by the way, to, she's not on today, but Maureen Hackett, man, she has been on them. Like, excuse my language, and flies on, flies on deer causing disease and been on this agency. And, for that and all of her advocates is why we are seeing some of these positive changes. So I guess I'm trying to be positive
right
today.
And then Maureen also did a fact sheet.
Yes.
Howling for Wolves has a fact sheet also with some language, and so did Humane Society of the United States.
And we are going to have both of those. So you can kind of look at 3 guides and figure out, how militant you want to be. But yeah, I think it's important that if you don't like wolf hunting and trapping, you should say so now, and this is your opportunity to do so.
And there's nothing wrong with telling the DNR that overall you support their plan, except for the following. These are the things that you have objection to and the reasons why you have an objection to them. But overall, you appreciate their, like they mentioned intrinsic value in there.
Yes.
They mentioned ethics. I really do think they tried very hard to come up with a decent plan.
I do too. And well, I'm not going to say it. Minnesota's plan has been very problematic in the past, and we don't need to go rehashing back through there, but they do have one scientist who's highly regarded by some who has had their hands in this, and it seems like maybe he's backed off a little bit. And I expected to see, well, I can just tell you, it's Dr. Meach. I expected his hands to be all over this, and they're not. And that kind of surprised me. That Meach has always been a proponent of lethal control and of recreational hunting and trapping. And I hate to burst people's bubble about the International Wolf Center, but it's just true. So I think maybe he's retiring finally.
Right.
I hope so, but it was good to see that it wasn't the Dr. Meach show this time. Should I be recording this? Now I'm going to get in trouble again.
Well, one of the lines that Dr. Meach often is quoted as saying, and he did say, but the hunting groups really capitalize on it because he says the population can sustain up to 50% deaths in a hunt. And what he's saying, in effect, is the fact that wolves will rebound and they will recruit, they will reproduce and have healthy offspring. But what he doesn't address is the impact to individual packs. Right. So, any rate.
Yes. And you know what? And I don't think that's true up to 50%, but wolves are very resilient. Clearly, they've rebounded with protections, right? So I think it was Jill Fritz at the Humane Study told me, really, it's protecting wolves from hunting and trapping is how wolves were able to recover, period. That's just it. That's just it. So, and I think it's something we still need to do because we saw what happened less than 2 years ago in Wisconsin. We see what's happening in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. It's not good. So I think, well, again, everyone's like, well, go easy on Minnesota. I'm not going easy on anybody because I've seen what can happen under the best intentions. Road to hell's paved with good intentions, right? So make sure that you really do make a comment about whether you think there should be recreational wolf hunting, because we don't. I guess that's my, let's trying to unshare my screen. Okay, does anyone else have questions about that? Any US resident can take the Minnesota and Michigan survey.
Yep, I was just posting that.
Okay. One thing I do think that you can say as well, and I'm going to say, is that Wisconsin wolves and Michigan wolves are all from Minnesota once upon a time, right? So this is a population. And whether they like to divide it out by state, which state's doing what, I really feel that they should be working together in conjunction. That's the only other thing I think is missing from Minnesota and Michigan, is that they should be working with Wisconsin and should be looking at the Great Lakes wolves population overall, because regional extinction happens, like we're seeing in Idaho and in Wyoming. So that whole Northern Rockies might be a population, which is how it should be looked at, because in our opinion, wolves are still threatened and endangered. And I don't see a lot of mention of the other states or working in collaboration with the other states. That's the only other comments that I think we need to make, because wolves go back and forth across state lines all the time, especially
in defense of Michigan's plan, they do say that Michigan wolves do not live in isolation.
That's right.
And it talks about dispersal and that sort of thing. So but it's only about 3 lines out of 100 and some odd pages.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, right, I would want to think we see pretty much the same wolf management plan in all 3 states, but I don't know. Minnesota nice. I don't get it. But okay, are there any other questions about these plans? Thanks for you guys. I recorded this one, so we'll put it up. I'll probably get in trouble because I said something bad about all hail King H, but I don't care. So that you can refer back to this. Otherwise, the guides will be on here. Fran, do you have anything you want to add as a scientist? Since you're VIP.
I think my main concern was the issue that relates to the arbitrary selection of signs, just because it seems like they're trying to make a case, or at least not provide folks with the appropriate information to actually know the effect of these management policies in wolf health and tolerance, what it relates to tolerance, what it relates to increasing conflicts whenever you implement lethal methods. And that plays also into the education that they do to the public at large. If they're not providing that education in the management plan, then I think that's very telling in them saying, we don't care about the science, we're not going to promote it. And that science does promote coexistence, and it promotes mitigating conflicts. So my concern is that this is sort of a first step in opening the door for potential use of lethal methods and lack of appropriate education to the public that might build into, the same issues that we see with hunters saying that killing wolves is going to increase game populations. Is not true, but the departments aren't doing anything to contradict it. Right. So is that concern that it builds, I think it's a lot more important as an overall sort of strategy than simply stating, this is critical for wolf for managing conflicts. It's also critical for public education. And I think that's a big failure, to be honest.
Good. Okay. Well, if nobody else has anything, we'll again, these will be on the website. I'm going to send a follow-up email so you have the links and the guides right in your email. It'll be on our advocacy tool page on our website, actually on time, because we're working on it right now. And hopefully, I think Allison just made a comment really quickly. According to CBD, wolf populations can only be sustained if mortality rates are less than 30%. I agree. I think it's probably more like 25%, but
yeah, I'll note on that as well that agencies habitually systematically underestimate poaching, because poaching is an illegal activity, is concealed. So any poaching that you see on the landscape is a minimum amount of poaching. And that issue is huge, because it means that you're underestimating mortality, you're overestimating populations, so even that percentage of like 22 to 28% where populations might be sustainable, even that might be an overblown, right? An exaggerated and an increased proportion relative to what's accurate.
Thank you. And the only other thing I'll add at the end is after you get this all done, guess what? We can comment on the moose population plan that's coming out from Minnesota as well. Again, it also has, you know, I'm not a, and well, I'll just be honest with you. Personally, I'm like, I can't believe someone would want to shoot a moose. They are not doing well. And the agency science knows it. The tribes know it. Everyone knows it because of climate change. And there is a huge lack of it. We'll go into it a different time. But I just want to tell you that that plan's coming up too. And I think if we're gonna comment and advocate for wolves, it's important that we comment and advocate for moose too. Because, you know, I don't think reducing wolf populations to help moose so that humans can turn around and hunt moose is ethical at all. You know, they did the same thing with woodland caribou. It did not help. They just killed wolves for no reason, and the population still, if they're gone, they're gone. Woodland caribou are toast. I'm sorry, they just are. So I do want just everybody to have a heads up on that. I know it's so much commenting, but that's what we do, right? We got to get in here because if we don't say anything, then they can do what they want. So just know that the moose management plan is coming out as well. And I think they really need to listen to some outside agency science and not just to the hunting community, because they're not doing well.
And if you really feel the urge to want to keep writing, Colorado is also accepting comments on the reintroduction of wolves to Colorado.
Yes.
Let's see, today was the deadline. You still have a few more hours to comment on Montana, on their wolf hunt. So
yeah, there's always comment, but you know, let's act locally. We live here, so we'll take this on, and we take on everything that we can.
Right.
You know, and we try to share what we can. But right here, well, in Wisconsin, we don't have to worry about anything except for that we totally do, because we need a new wolf management plan, and maybe it's grounds for more litigation. But we can go into that another time too.
Kelly has her hand up. Kelly has.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey guys, I read an article recently about an ordinary citizen using a drone to prove that some manufacturing facility was polluting this river with something that was pretty bad. And it got me thinking about poaching and how could we, is that a new frontier that could be pursued? Is anybody looking into using drones to stop other illegal activity like poaching?
I know that they talked about using drones in research at Red Cliff once. The problem is you got to have your drone in the right place at the right time, right?
Right.
It isn't well, maybe. I mean, sure, you can fly drones all over the place, but it's hard to catch poachers. It just is. It's hard. I can't tell you we have something coming up that you guys are gonna be really excited about, but
yeah,
really excited about. But
if I could jump in real quick on this one, I have a tiny bit of knowledge on it.
Go ahead, Ashley. Sure.
So from what I understand, because this came up before with NOAA, I was curious why they couldn't use drones for, monitoring the coast. They have so few ships to do that. And there's all sorts of regulation nightmare plus funding. But I did see, interestingly, on Animal Planet recently that they were using drones, I think in Texas, to monitor whatever their Fish and Wildlife Agency is. So it can be done, but I think it's a regulation funding issue at this time.
Well, also you have one other issue, I think in Wisconsin in particular, where you have an anti-harassment law on the books, and some hunters can perceive that as harassment. I don't know. I think you're crossing a real fine line. I think it would be probably the most effective to do this just to buzz around with a drone during deer hunting season. But then again, you have to be careful not to be making too much noise and disrupting a hunt.
Yep. And also you got to think Texas has a little bit different landscape than Wisconsin, where you can get a good wide view on a big, large landscape. And here in Wisconsin, I can be walking a trail and there can be a wolf 200 feet from me, and I'm not going to see it because our wolves, someone probably shoot it down. Judy's right. But, it's a dense. Oh, go ahead. Just the landscape.
They've used them. Definitely the landscape could be an issue too, but they've used them in Africa to try to prevent poaching of rhinos and elephants, actually. it's a whole thing where they have to get a pilot's license essentially and coordinate with the local government. So there has to be a lot of buy-in, which, that would be a tough sell too, of course, with some of these agencies, but it can be done.
It could be done. And
just the thought that it might deter somebody from doing something bad, knowing this stuff is out there, that's a result in and of itself.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. Our research on wolves in Wisconsin revealed that when you have more individuals on the landscape during times where poaching occurs, which is mostly during deer season, then poachers are disincentivized from engaging in that type of activity because there are more individuals around them, and that sort of doesn't, they do this frequently when no one's going to catch them. So to the extent that they can get caught, then that's going to be dissuasive for them. Now, that's different than you could have individuals in the field during those times, for example, helping out with monitoring activities, and those are activities that actually take place during those times. So a good recommendation would be to engage with individuals, organizations that have a high esteem, that hold a high esteem for wolves, and coordinate with them to do that monitoring during those times. And at the same time, you might be increasing patrolling against poaching.
Right. I agree. The other thing, it's kind of funny, and I did not question them or dispute them. But if you remember, a couple of months ago, Voyager's Wolf Project posted a video of a wolf wearing a GoPro camera, and it was just all over the place. Well, that transition to some people believe that all our wolves are being equipped with GoPro cameras. And so then they said, don't be careful on shooting any wolf because they're wearing a camera. And I thought, that's a good idea. Yeah.
There are programs like this for other species. I mean, if you look at, you guys know how much I love my fishes. If you look at sturgeon fishing, there are anti-poaching patrols, and you pay for them. The DNR is out there patrolling. They have a guy just sitting there all day, every day. The citizens are out monitoring it because they know what a big problem it is. But it's just, wolves are so difficult on the landscape, right? Like fish are in Lake Winnebago. There's a place you can go to make sure nobody poaches. In Wisconsin, it's kind of opportunistic. And frankly, I don't think a lot of people want to get out there when it's 10 below. I mean, snow kind of has to be on the ground to be really good at poaching. And Brennan's research showed that snow on the ground increases poaching. So while it's always it's a concern, but we can talk about this. I don't mean to be rude. I just have a phone call I need to get to in 3 minutes.
And this could be a topic of another conversation, but for years in Wisconsin and Michigan, I did hunter outreach where I went out and I transitioned to more public areas rather than just going to hunting camps, but to meet with hunters and tell them about wolves and let them know that we are watching. And anyway, that could be a topic of another conversation, and maybe we could talk about resurrecting that come the fall.
Yep. All right. Well, sorry, guys. I've got to go because I've got to talk to Renee, who's on this call, is patiently waiting for me. But I want to thank you all. And again, we'll post this. And thank you for all your questions. And thank you, Nancy and Brent.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.